We are clearly about to re-enter the Gypsy Rose cycle, so before history repeats itself, I thought I would share a few red flags that I noticed in the new Netflix Menendez Brothers documentary. These will range from the most subtle red flags that just kind of set off with me, and they will range to the most blatant ones, which set off all kinds of alarm bells for me as far as this case is concerned. So first of all are some discrepancies that stand out to me in the current testimony that Lyle gives about their trial. During the testimony, Lyle's original testimony where he gets really emotional, he recalls that and he says, it was totally organic. Leslie just drew that out of me. There was absolutely no preparation that went into that. Leslie didn't like to prepare us. She wanted it to be organic on the stand. I believe that that is a lie, and here's why. If you go and watch the testimony of Eric, it becomes very, very clear that his answers are very, very quick, very, very prepared. So every time Leslie asks him a question, there's a beat and there's a very quick yes, no, he raped me, he did this, he did that. Okay, there's no recall from memory, because when someone's recalling from memory, you'll see things like they might move their hands more, they will look up as if they're trying to pull memory. There was no recall of memory. This was like fast, back and forth, prepared answers. And if Leslie was prepping him, which why wouldn't she? She's a defense attorney. Why wouldn't Lyle also be prepped? Okay, it doesn't make sense. And it really doesn't make sense when you then go back against that claim that he makes that there was no preparation and you watch Lyle's testimony, which again, there's very little recall from memory. It's very, very fast answers, very, very fast emotional responses versus someone who's emotionally re-immersing themselves in that memory and recalling it from a visceral place of experience. Another red flag for me that I noticed in watching this new Menendez Brothers documentary with these new testimonies from the brothers is a strange affectation in language. When Eric specifically speaks about the father, his language changes. It almost becomes grandiose and awkward and strange. He starts using strange verbiage when he's talking about his dad. And even the way he speaks becomes quite more distinct, quite more grandiose. Absolutely, this feeds into the abuse stuff, but the more important thing for me is that change in affectation. When they are talking about specific people, it's almost performative. It's almost as if they are trying to, when they speak of specifically brutal instances, they try to change their language to change your perception of them within that. Another huge red flag to me is Lyle's perceptions of himself as being extremely smart, extremely talented, better than others, which I'll explain when I tell you the biggest red flag. But Lyle has this really grandiose self-perception. But then if you go and read the stuff that he was writing in prison, it's riddled with grammatical mistakes. How was a Princeton scholar, an Ivy League student, not able to use apostrophes? I couldn't get a picture of her because I really don't care, but their cousin, the one that's in the new documentary, who stares like this and doesn't blink a lot, that in itself is a red flag. I'm not sure what's going on there, but when you've got this kind of thing going on, it's usually a sign of something else going on. Okay, so we're getting more serious with the red flags now. There was a big one with Eric that a lot of people haven't noticed. So Eric was the one who, after the murders, went and did a bunch of modeling shots. Remember those? All those modeling pictures he took, and was traveling the world and all this kind of thing. He was in a way like more visible, right? Because he was taking these photos to try to break into modeling and all that stuff, while his brother was just kind of in the background doing businesses, buying flashy stuff. There's a desire or comfort with that kind of attention or visibility, okay? I want you to pay attention to that. Now, here's why that struck me. It's because when Eric first took the stand, there's a very intense Cheshire cat smile grin that he wears. And a lot of people said, this is anxiety. He was just anxious. But to me, it felt like excitement. It felt like excitement at that attention, of being the center of attention. Does that tie into the murders? I don't know that it does at all, but I think that could lend itself to some of the discussions we've had about narcissism and sociopathy. And here's the last biggest red flag to me. And when Lyle said this in the documentary, it literally made me go, what? I had to stop and rewind it. And essentially it's this. Lyle is talking about his arrest, the day he was arrested, and here's how he phrases it. He says, the cops had it staged as a media event. They surrounded me like I was some kind of fugitive drug dealer or something. Still, to this day, Lyle does not accept or comprehend the fact that he murdered multiple people. He made that statement as though what he did was so much better than some scummy common drug dealer. He sits there on the documentary and he says, I can't believe they surrounded me like some kind of common drug dealer. They surrounded me with a SWAT team. Of course they did. You murdered 2 people and you knew that you had murdered those 2 people when you were surrounded by that SWAT team. Yet Lyle still frames his crimes as though they were nothing less than just a bad Sunday afternoon. This is what the experts were talking about when they tried to warn everyone that at the very least, we're dealing with sociopaths. And I want you guys to remember this because I know we're about to Gypsy Rose that again. Sociopathy, psychopathy, there are genetic elements to these, which means even if all of that horrible stuff that they've alleged didn't happen, they were already predisposed because we know their father was an absolute sociopath. Now you add that to what was absolutely an abusive household. No one's going to argue that. It was absolutely an abusive household. You've got the perfect environment to create 2 sociopathic narcissistic killers. Please be careful, y'all. Please learn something from Gypsy Rose.